All right, so we are going to learn, review factoring. Okay, so this is one of those things, the tutoring, the extended day starts Monday. This is one of those skills that you have done in 7th and 8th grade and maybe a little bit in geometry, but probably not a ton. So you really need to focus because this is the only time I'm reviewing it. We are going to use it in this chapter, but it is your responsibility to know how to factor. If you're in this class, then that means you've passed Algebra 1. And if you've passed Algebra 1, everybody's had factoring. Okay, and so it's going to, that's why we're reviewing. So with factoring, and you'll get your calendar on Monday, on October 6th is going to be when your homework is due, and you have 10 factoring assignments on Delta Math. I would start, they go easy to difficult. So I would start with factoring 1 and then move on to factoring 2. You have until October 6th. This is on top of the other homework that I'm going to give you. So when you're done with this video, I would start working on it. This will be the only work time that you get in class. Okay, so with that being said, let's just review distributive property. So when I distribute, I take this x and I multiply it into both of them. So that's x squared plus 2x. And then I would take the negative 3 and I multiply it into both of them. So it's a negative 3x plus, good morning. Negative 3x minus 6. The middle terms always, you get 4 terms, and most times you can take those 4 terms and you can combine them together. So you get that as an answer. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to, some of you will learn the words FOIL, which is fine, first, outer, inner, last, or you're distributing. You're taking the first one into both of them. So you get x squared plus 3x. You're taking the second one into both of them, and you get 5x plus 15. So my answer would be x squared plus 8x plus 15. Okay, and so then finally you have x squared minus 2x minus 7x plus 14. So the middle adds together and you get x squared minus 9x plus 14. So if you look at these answers, these middle numbers, and it works on this, so you guys learned the a value of 1, and that's kind of what we're going over right now. These are nice, simple ones. If you look at this number right here is a negative 6, and you're looking for factors of a negative 6 that add up to negative 1. I always make my table vertical, and then I list my factors like 1 times a negative 6, that adds up to negative 5. That's not it. So I do 2 times a negative 3. That adds, okay, there they are. And if you look, these factors are what goes in here. And they also, since it's an x squared by itself, go there. You guys, most of you, I apologize, I'll try. You did diamond problems over and over again in Algebra 1. So you did factors of a negative 6 that added up to a negative 1. Okay, the same process works here. Factors of 15 that add up to 8, well, that's 5 and 3. That adds up to 8. And if you look, 5 and 3 is what happened when I multiplied, and it's what was in my problem. So we're going to work these backwards. We're going to have these answers, and we're going to have to try to work backwards and get x minus 7 and x minus 2. Okay, these are in your notes at the back of the last unit, the one you took the test over yesterday. You all have your notes. If you want to flip there, the back, this is Algebra 1 review in there. So when the leading coefficient is 1, you can make a table. I make a table instead of the diamond, and the reason why is because I'm teaching Algebra 2, not Algebra 1. In Algebra 1, you had really simple numbers. In Algebra 2, you're going to have more complicated ones, and so you're going to have to list the factors, and so the table helps me. But if you want to make a diamond, I don't care. Diamond, table, it doesn't matter. So you're doing factors of the outside, which is 16, that adds up to the middle, which is 8. So I'd have 1 and 16, well, that adds up to 17. I'd have 2 and 8. Well, that adds up to 10. 3 doesn't go in. 4 times 4. That adds up to 8. So that's my factors. So there were 2 ways you were taught. One way is to take these 2 answers you got right here and write them in the middle. So you're going to write x squared plus 4x plus 16. And then you're going to do what's called grouping. You're going to group the first two together, and you're going to group the second two together. And you're going to see what you can factor out. Well, you can factor out a 4. That leaves you with an x plus 1. And here in the yellow, you can factor out a 4. Oh, Lord. Good morning. That's why I shouldn't do this. On the first one, I can't factor out a 4. What am I doing? I can factor out an x. That leaves me with an x plus 4. The second one, I can factor out a 4. That leaves me with an x plus 4. And so what happens is these two sets of parentheses are the same. And if they're the same, then you can factor that out in front. So you're taking that outside. And then you're doing what's left over. So that would be x plus 4. Now, if you look, these answers match your table. And the reason for that is because you have just a plain old x squared. And if you look, all of these are x squareds. So this is my rule for leading coefficient of 1. If the leading coefficient is 1, this should be a review, then the answer you get in your table are just what goes in your parentheses. So I said there's two ways of doing this. That's why I struggled with this problem, because honestly, I would never do it way 1 because it has an x squared in the front. I would just write two sets of parentheses and say, okay, well, x times x is x. What multiplied together to get 16 would give me 8, right? And so, well, that would be 4 and 4, okay? So what I would like you guys to do right now, and this is it. This is all the practice you're going to get. You guys did a month of this in Algebra 1 in junior high. And like I've been telling you guys, I know you're junior high teachers. I know you factored. So you're going to have to, if you're struggling factoring, you've got about 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, starting on Thursday, you're going to have to be able to factor. So you've got about 4 days where you can get in and get extra help. You can go to extended day after school. You can go in before school. I'll be there Monday morning. And I will be there Tuesday morning. I won't be there Wednesday and Thursday, but you've got to come in. So I would like you to hit pause, and I would like you to work the next 3. All right, so you should have worked the next 3. If I make my table, and I'm going to go ahead and make a diamond because a lot of you did, I would do factors of a negative 30 that add up to negative 7. Well, that would be subtracting. And this is the reason why I like a table, because, it's 1 and 30. I like to list, if you look up here, I like to list the ones that I've used instead of doing in my head. And when you use a diamond, you got to list them and erase them, and I just don't want to do that. But 1 and 30 doesn't work. 2 and 15 doesn't work. 3 and 10, okay, I think that would be it. A positive 3 and a negative 10. So my factors would be x minus 10 and x plus 3. And if I FOIL it, it will get me back to the original answer. So you can make a diamond, or you can, but you're looking for the factors of 30 that subtract to negative 7. The order on this doesn't matter. The parentheses can be in any order, but you just got to be able to factor. So on the next one, I would do factors of the outside. So factors of 12 that add up to negative 7. So if they're going to be a positive 12, they got to be the same. Like negative 1 and a negative 12, that's a negative 13. Negative 2 and a negative 6, that's a negative 8. Negative 3 and a negative 4, that's a negative 7. So that means that my answers must have been a negative 3 and a negative 4. So it's x minus 3 and x minus 4. And that equals, I'd multiply them and it would add up to the middle, which is a negative 7. Okay, so the last one, I would do factors of the outside, factors of a negative 14 that add up to 5. So that would be 14, and I just like to start with 1, that's 13, 7, and a negative 2. Oh, wait, that's 5, isn't it? So that means that these are my factors. Since my x value is all by itself, I would say x, and then I would have a plus 7 and a minus 2. So that gives me a negative 14, but it adds up to 5. So these are the leading coefficients of 1. And so you should be able to get the factoring 1 and factoring 2 done. Those are both assignments that just have nice, easy ones. So let's kind of move along. Now we have numbers in front. So I'm going to have you pause, and then I'm going to have the answers written down. So pause and work these three. They're in your notes as well. And if you look at this answer, it still is factors of the outside, factors of 10 that add up to the inside, 11. Those are my two answers here, right? Factors of 10 that add up to 11 are 10 and 1. So if I do the next one, it's 3x squared plus 9x minus 4x minus 12. And again, I have factors of the outside. I'm using those. So it's going to be 3x squared plus 5x minus 12. And if I look at the outside, I have factors of the outside. That would be a negative 36 that add up to the inside, which would be the 5. And so if I make my table, it is going to be 9 and 4. Okay, so then this last one is 5x squared plus 10x minus 3x minus 6. So my answer is 5x squared plus 7x minus 6. If I look, factors of a negative 30 that add up to 7 are 10 and negative 3. So this is just still using a table, but it's more complicated. So there are two ways of doing this. So let's look at this first one. If I make my table, and I'm sorry, you can make a diamond. I make the table. Factors of 24 that add up to 10. 1 and 24, that adds up to 25. 2 and 12, that's a 12, adds up to 14. 3 and 8 adds up to 11. 4 and 6, that adds up to 10. So these are the factors that I'm dealing with. Okay, so now what I would like to do is I'm going to show you what's called, way one is what's called grouping. Okay, and so what you do is you take this 4 and 6 and you put it in the middle. So you have 3x squared plus 4x plus 6x plus 8. And what you do is, that's why it's called grouping. You group the first two together and the second two together. So what can I take out of the first two? Well, just an x, so that leaves me with an x plus 4. What can I take out of the second two is a 2. That leaves me with a 3x plus 4. These parentheses should be the same, and that is one of your factors. The other factor is what's left in front. So in this case, my other factor would be x plus 2. Okay? So that's what's called grouping. And I think Centennial and Dean Morgan, I know, did grouping totally fine. The second way of doing this is what we like to call just guess and check. It's not really guessing because we have the numbers 4 and 6, but that's kind of what I believe a lot of the CCA kids did this. So what you do in this is you make two sets of parentheses and you look for what's going to multiply to give you 3. Well, what's the only thing in the whole wide world that gives you 3? It's going to be 3x and 1x. So it's not really guessing. I don't like calling it guess and check, but that's kind of what they always call it. You're actually using this to figure it out. Okay. And then you're looking at the last number, and you can't just slap whatever in there. So if I look at this last number, the last number is 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about, okay, 8 could be 8 and 1, and I could put like a plus 1 and a plus 8. And I could check it. So this is 24 and that's 1. So that's 20. So it's not that. So you have to have an eraser if you're going to do it this way. So I don't think it's 1 and 8. But the other thing that makes 8 is 2 and 4. So I could put the 2 here and the 4 there because that makes 8. Well, that gives me 12 and 2, which is 14. And I want 10. So it must be, So it must be the other way. It must be a 4 here and a 2 here. Well, that gives me a 6 and an 8. And 6 plus 8, 6 plus 4. 6 plus 4, sorry, this is a 6 and this is a 4. Good morning. 6 plus 4 is 10, and that does give me my middle number. And so this is my answer. And if you look, guess and check uses less paper, but more logic. You don't use as much paper, but numbers have to come really easily to you, or you could sit there forever and not finish a test. Grouping doesn't really take any time, but it does take more paper. So you've got to make a decision. I don't really care how you factor. When you get into trigonometry, you are going to have to do some grouping. Okay, so let's take a look. I would like you to pause, and I would like you to try these next two. So pause and try them. All right, so on this first one, I would do factors of the outside. So factors of a negative 20 that subtract because it's a negative 20. So I would do like negative 20 and 1. That's a negative 19, negative 10 and 2. Oh, there it is, negative 8. So I found it, okay? So I'm going to do the second way first. I'm going to do this by guess and check first. So what you do is you make two sets of parentheses and then you look at the front number. What is the only thing in the whole wide world that multiplies to be 5? So it's going to be 5x and x. And so that's my answer there. Okay, and so I know that much. And I know it works because I have a table that works. Okay, now I'm going to look at the last number. The last number is 4. So the only thing in the world that makes 4 is 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. And I don't write this down. I do this in my head. So I got to figure out, well, I don't think I want the 1 and 4 because that would give me too big a 20. So I think I'm going to need a 2 and a 2. That gives me 10. That gives me 2. And 10 minus 2 is 8. Well, I want the 10 to be negative because it's a negative 8. So this is my answer. I did that by guessing and checking. And I kind of showed you some extra stuff. Okay, so now let's go into grouping because we did that. I would like to show you grouping. So guess and check takes absolutely no paper. But it takes time in your brain. And some of you, it's not going to be the way you're going to want to go. Grouping is you write the first 5x squared, and then you put in the 10x and the 2. You put in the table, and then you write the last. So the first is still in there. My 5x is still there. And my last is still in there, the 4. Okay, and all I've done is I've taken the table and I've put it into the middle. And I'm going to make it that purple so you can see those pieces. So what I can do, I group the first two. I can take out a 5x. That leaves me with an x minus 2. Here I can take out a 2. That leaves me with an x minus 2. These parentheses should always be the same if you have a table that works. One of my answers is x minus 2. One of them is 5x plus 2. So if you look, that matches. My two answers match. And so I don't care if you do this by grouping or do this by guess and check, but you have to be able to factor. Okay, so now on the next one, you should have tried this, right? So I'm going to have you simplify. So I'm going to make my table, and I have factors of a negative 14 that add up to negative 13. Well, I can see what that would be, negative 14 and 1. Okay, so let's do this by grouping. If I do this by grouping, I leave the 7x, and then I do my 14x and 1x. I put those in the middle, and then I leave my last number. What can I take out of here? A 7x. And on this one, I can't take anything out because there's no common factor. So if you can't take anything out, you always take a 1 out to hold the place value. So these parentheses are the same. So one of my answers is x minus 2, and the other one is 7x plus 1. Sorry, that got on that page. Okay, so if I do this same thing and I do it by guess and check, I'm just going to write my two sets of parentheses. What in the world multiplies to be 7? 7x and x. What multiplies to be 2? 2 and 1. So I've just got to figure out, well, I know the 2 needs to go here because that gives me the 14, and I want the 14 to be negative. And if I look, my answers match. So guess and check. I'm going to actually start another movie so that they don't take so long to download.